My gosh, what an absolutely incredible episode. Episode 15 of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation's second season. Shion Wakayama nailed that performance. That was an absolutely incredible performance. You can hear the pain in her voice, the way that she broke down, the screeching, all that stuff was just so beautifully portrayed. And this, having some really great animation, that whole breakdown session of Nanahoshi was just... It was way too good. It was way too good. Too bad, unfortunately, though, we did not get her singing at the bar later on. I was hoping to get the anime singing that she does. That's Rudeus explains is really, really terrible. But additionally, I'm surprised they skipped Sylphie being jealous of Ruijerd. They skipped drunk Sylphie. We didn't get to see the clingy type Sylphie scene. That was a shocker for sure. Overall, this episode was great. Great pacing. It was easily probably the best adaptation episode that we've had in a long time. Like, this is going to go up there as probably one of my favorite episodes of the series so far. And yes, we've even got the Julie carrying part. I totally thought they were going to skip Rudeus carrying Julie, which I think is a really great little moment to have right there after this big emotional point, and yes, a very kind of sad follow-up for it. So really great they added that in there. Yes, of course, there's still a lot skipped in this episode, and we're going to get through all that with this video, my impressions, and plus I'm going to get into all the skipped content for this episode. So with that said, let's just dive into it. Opening up the episode, we skipped quite a bit of updates, and every now and then in the novel series, Rudeus will give kind of updates as to what everybody's doing. Rudeus is still practicing battle auras, despite the fact that he's failing at it miserably. Every now and then, Bodyguardi would join him to help him spar, but Rudeus noticed that Bodyguardi didn't seem to match up to the likes of Ruijerd and Ghislaine. Rudeus figured this was probably due to the fact that he has an immortal body, so he doesn't really kind of focus on defense. Still, Bodyguardi did offer some useful advice every so often. Cliff was deep in his research. He was working on disassembling magic items and working on an original magical implement. Of course, this is for Elise for her curse. Cliff wasn't sure that he could transfer a curse, but he wanted to make an instrument that negates the curse. His theory was that magic items and curses function much the same. A curse placed on an object produced a magic item, whereas a curse on a human produced a cursed child. If you could do something about the effects of the magic item, then you could do something about the curse. Zanoba, on the other hand, was deep in his research on the doll, often seemingly shooing Rudeus away, as if he was afraid that Rudeus would solve the puzzle at a glance. Julie was progressing well. According to Sylphie, a child practicing the same school while young would increase their proficiency with it. So focusing on earth magic, the hope was that she would be an expert in the school soon. In classes, Linnea and Prasenna were bothered by the way that Rudeus was aroused but not touching them. Prasenna would tease him with flirting giggles, and Linnea would flash her pantsu. Rudeus noted that they were blue. Visiting Nanahoshi, she was crabby as ever. Now that Rudeus's fang was working again, he could appreciate her petite Japanese build. That made her stand out amongst others in the world. Though she did warn him that if he ever touched her, she would cry to Orsted. Rudeus begged that she would not do that. For Sylphie, she was receiving a day of rest. That was thanks to Elise volunteering to guard the princess instead. While Sylphie was working, Rudeus worked to keep the house clean. Since it was a bit too much for him to keep up with, he considered getting a maid, which reminded him of Lilia. He wondered if Paul and the others were reunited with Zenith. It had been 3 years since Elise and her comrades located his mother. It would take Roxy and Talhand a year or two to cut across the Demon Continent and arrive at Milshin. They would then have to depart for the Beggaric Continent's labyrinth city of Rapon. That shouldn't be a whole year's journey. Rudeus had sent his first letter a year and a half ago. If it arrived as planned, he would have a reply soon. He didn't need to worry. Elle and Elise assured him that there was nothing to worry about. But he felt anxious. Roxy was on the case, and he trusted her, so he had to keep calm and wait. Of course, this is before he's even gotten the letter from Paul in this episode. Now that he'd thought about it, with Blenheim Village gone, Paul and the others would have to settle down in Milshin, or possibly they could travel all the way up to Rudeus' manor. You could say that getting married and buying a house was for the sake of his family, but that was only a convenient excuse, and an afterthought. The thought of the former shut-in, now possibly taking care of his parents, was moving, even if it was difficult to give up his privacy with Sylphie. I do love the idea of Rudeus, who was once a shut-in that just wanted people to leave him alone. Yes, he demanded a lot of things from his family, but it's like, now he's literally going to be taking care of his family. His previous life, he shooed them away, and now he's welcoming them. But anyhow, that's all the skip content. Now we actually start the episode proper. We get the letter from Paul. It is time to get the letter from Paul, which honestly, they kind of missed something extremely important in this segment, but the overall contents of the letter was great. And yes, seeing Roxy and everybody standing there, my Roxy's back. And yeah, I knew the moment that I seen Roxy kind of gazing to the side and she looked all like uneasy. I was like, yeah, that's totally Ruijerd in that room. It's totally Ruijerd in that room. I was so happy. But no, I'm going to read what's in the actual light novel for the letter itself. And you'll know exactly why in a minute, why it needs to be read. Dear Rudeus, I got your letter. So you're enrolling in the University of Magic. Congratulations. I'm so glad you're walking your own path. I'm sure you've heard this from Elise already, but we found Zenith's location. Thanks to Roxy, Talhan, and Elise, and are on our way to retrieve her. Give Elise my regards. Of course, she'll probably just look disgusted if you do. On to the real topic. We're currently in Eastport. We're about to head to the Beggar Continent next. I've never been there before, but it's said to be one of the harshest places in the world after the Demon Continent. I hesitate to take the children with me. Norn and Aisha are still only 9. That's when the idea came up to send the 2 of them to where you are. Of course, it's not like they couldn't just go by themselves. Ginger volunteered to accompany them, but I wasn't sure if that would be enough. Just then, I ran into someone you know. They offered to take on the task of escorting the children to you. And I agreed. I'm sure you'll be surprised when you see them. They're very reliable. Honestly, it was a painful decision. I kept thinking, what if something happened to them along the way? What if something horrible happens and I'm not there? Much as I want them with me, I also want them to be safe. You as well. Once they get there, just find them a place to live, no matter how small, and send them to school. I sent them along with enough money to cover their living and enrollment expenses. It's quite a large sum. Don't go using it to buy women, okay? I'm just teasing. Knowing you, you'll do a good job, I'm sure. But yeah, I get that this is something that I should be doing myself. Sorry for being a terrible father. I feel bad asking this of you, but please, do me this favor. Come to think of it, you're already 15, but I guess that you'll be 16 or 17 by the time this letter gets to you. Either way, you're an adult. I feel bad that we couldn't celebrate your birthday together. I won't be able to celebrate Norn or Aisha's 10th birthday either. Ah well, we can have one huge party when we all get back together, as a family. Leave finding your mother to me. The Fatoa Search and Rescue Corps have effectively disbanded, but I have plenty of firepower at my side. Between Lilia, Talhan, Roxy, Viera, Shira, and myself, we can make it to the Beggar Continent and back. If things go smoothly, we should be able to join you in Renoa in another year or 2. I did consider sending Lilia along with the children, but apparently she's more worried about me than she is about them. What a mess. I feel pathetic. Anyhow, Lilia trusts Aisha. She's basically taught the girl all she could. Aisha is a genius. I'm a bit scared about the power of my own genes, honestly, considering how you and Aisha turned out. Norn, though, she's a normal kid. She's not like you and Aisha. You might get really frustrated with her, but try to be patient. I'm afraid I spoiled her, and it's made her a bit selfish. She hates you, and she doesn't get along well with Aisha, so she might feel isolated over there. As her older brother, please be kind to her. I also gave them a copy of this letter, just in case. I'm sure they'll be fine, considering who's looking after them. But if they don't show up within 6 months of this letter's arrival, I'd like you to go look for them. So, that's the gist of it. I feel bad for leaving everything to you, but thank you. Paul, Grey Rat. Yeah, if you didn't notice, there is a lot of self-deprecation in this. The idea of being a terrible father. Sorry I have to leave this to you. And yes, even Rudeus himself notes that right after he reads it. Rudeus realized the letter was full of guilt. He was nervous of Norn and Aisha coming there, but it was better than them going to the Beggar Continent. And it seemed that leaving them with Zenith's family was problematic, because yes, Zenith's family is in Milshin. Rudeus did ponder about who Paul was mentioning, but then really quickly realized that, yeah, he did mention that he was searching the Central Continent. Obviously, Ruijerd. Good fortune allowed them to cross paths with Paul. With that in mind, they wouldn't even need Ginger. That aside, Rudeus could tell how much Paul trusted him based on the letter. He'd have to live up to those expectations. As the eldest son, with open rooms available, it seemed convenient for giving them a place to stay. He would just have to give them rooms furthest away from him so that he could be with Sylphie. He was actually looking forward to their arrival. 2 months, perhaps? And yes, Sylphie was happy that everyone was safe. But Rudeus felt it tactless due to the fact that she had lost her own family. But even without Sylphie having her mother or father, she had a family now. And Elise, Rudeus, she wasn't lonely. Yeah, that was something that I was going to get into with the previous episode talk, is that yes, this is technically a significant thing for Sylphie with what happened at the wedding, her finding Elise basically, or at least confirming that, so to speak. And this is like a great thing for her because now she has a blood relative that's actually available to her now. Again, she lost Laws and her mother, and now finally here somebody that's a blood relative is right in front of her. So it's actually a really massive big deal for her. But yeah, that's the letter. And like I said, I think the main key thing here is kind of noting how Rudeus is noting that Paul sounds very kind of self-deprecating. He's, yes, also trusting Rudeus, and that Rudeus feels like, oh, and I have to step up now. This is something that was kind of gotten into way back when Rudeus first ran into Paul in Milshin. He had no mindset of family. He really didn't. And he was only worried about Sylphie when he heard about the displacement incident. He didn't have care, and that was what was frustrating Paul. He's like, why don't you care about your family? And now right here, Rudeus has changed so much that now when he's presented with the idea that he might have to take care of his family, a former shut-in that didn't care about others, now he's suddenly welcoming them with open arms. It's a really significant change here to not only, yes, Paul seeing how much he's sort of seen that he's a failure and wants to do better, but also the Rudeus, again, noting that he was a failure and now wanting to do better. Anyhow, moving on. I feel like I've not gotten through this episode at all. But moving on, we got to the point where Sylphie and Rudeus are talking. There's a couple other things here, which I'll get into later on. There's quite a bit more that's skipped, but I'm going to leave it to the end, and you guys can decide if it's something you want to listen to. But yes, basically we have the point which Rudeus and Sylphie decide they're going to do some training together. Him teaching her to serve magic, and her teaching him healing. I really feel like the anime itself kind of glossed over it, and it doesn't really make too much sense just reading the subtitles at least. But yes, the idea here is that Rudeus can do a lot of incantationless spells, but he's never been able to do it for healing, whereas Sylphie could. And this has always been an oddity for him, that despite the fact that he knows so much and everybody's impressed by him, Sylphie was able to do what he was able to do, but something he hasn't been able to do. Healing magic entailed touching another person's body and pouring mana into it, which I know is an oddity here for anime onlys, because every time they use healing in this show, it's always from a distance. I'm not sure. I think the anime adaptation, the people adapting it, they don't like touching. But yes, you've always had to touch a person's body, using mana to alter the flow of mana and heal their wounds. Rudeus wasn't able to conjure the feelings of having someone else's mana interfere with his, like pressing your right index finger to your left palm. Although only the finger felt anything, offensive magic was easy as breathing. There was probably many things that he couldn't cast without incantations, like support magic. Maybe like battle auras, it was something reincarnated people couldn't master. Or he just didn't have a knack for healing magic. Again, this is kind of an oddity that he's always experienced. It goes back to the whole like beginning segments, so like the very first episode / the first volume of the series, this idea that when Rudeus was first figuring this stuff out, his assumption was that based on the fact that he knows sort of a lot of information in our modern times about how like water works and clouds work and stuff like that, he assumed that was probably why he was able to do a lot of things incantationless, whereas everybody else is like, holy crap, people can't do that. It's rare for people to be able to do that. And yet here's Rudeus. He's got to be a genius. And again, Rudeus thought he was special in some way. But in the moment that Sylphie picked it up so quickly, it's like, no, maybe it's not maybe I'm not an oddity. And again, it's really cool that even despite that, Sylphie's able to do something even more. And she likes that. She likes that there's something that Rudeus doesn't like have full control over. Like there's something that she can do that he can't. It kind of makes somebody relatable in a way. Now, on the other hand, Sylphie mastered Disturb Magic in no time. She was really an exceptional student compared to anyone else that he taught. When Sylphie asked Rudeus if it was unfair because a magician can't do anything if you do that, Rudeus noted that one of the 7 great powers uses similar technique. When she was surprised that he was acquainted with one of the 7 great powers, he said no, Nanahoshi was. Rudeus decided not to mention the fact that one of them nearly killed him. Again, Orsted. Keeping the mention of Orsted to himself. There wasn't any guarantee that Orsted wouldn't come after Rudeus for teaching people Disturb Magic. With that in mind, he told Sylphie not to share that information with anyone else. Same goes for Disturb Magic. He didn't think that he could protect her and himself from one of the 7 great powers. This is an interesting thing because this sort of is one of those oddities, and I think that they probably didn't include this in the anime because it's sort of an inconsistency. Yes, Sylphie knew that Rudeus had met Orsted before, so that shouldn't be a shock to her that he mentions that he's, ran into one of the 7 great powers here, or that Nanahoshi is acquainted with them. Anyhow, wrapping up their little training session, Rudeus asks if she thinks that they'll have their children will have an affinity for magic, which totally throws her off. And yeah, this is an interesting point that she knows, is that because she has so much, because the blood of the elves is in her so much, like it's so strong, that yes, elves typically have a difficulty in getting pregnant. So she's telling Rudeus here, I might have trouble having a child for you. You want it so badly, it's going to be difficult for me. So if you want to get a mistress, I'm fine with it. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that for you. But no, what was interesting here is that Rudeus follows it up by saying, I don't want that. It's not that he says, and this has kind of bugged me when I read this for the first time, it's not that he wants a child, he just wants a representation of their love. He essentially wants a medal that says that this is ours, we made this thing. And I was very much so a struggle with this. But I understand the mindset here. Rudeus this is something that he's got to learn. He's got to learn the idea of what it means to be a father. Being a father is not the idea of you popped out a bun out of the oven. And he doesn't understand that at this point. He's really just kind of seeing a child as sort of a medal. And that's all he really wants. He doesn't want a child. He wants a medal. And it's Rudeus, the flawed Rudeus that he's always going to say a lot of things that's going to frustrate you. Yes, that's when we get to Nanahoshi. the Nanahoshi segment, a culmination of 2 years of Nanahoshi working on this summoning process, and this is what it all has led up to. summoning an object from another world. And I like this because in this earlier segment, it is Rudeus kind of going, is this going to be okay? Like, is nothing, we're not going to have another displacement incident, are we? This is like, we're getting to that point now where now Rudeus is going, is this an okay thing? And we've kind of explained it before that the process that Nanahoshi has sort of developed here is a slow process, slowly adjusting it over and over again because she wants to make sure what she's making here isn't going to cause a displacement incident. She's being very careful. And yeah, she's also noting the idea of right here about how much mana is being put into it versus how much mana is needed for it to work. The bigger the object, the more complicated it is, it needs more mana. She says, based on our previous experiments, I've confirmed that the more bigger and more complex the object that you try to summon, the more mana is required. In other words, magic in this world obeys the law of conservation of energy. We'll be summoning something simple and small this time. If we assume the energy from the summoning was enough to wipe out a region, then theoretically this circle will, at most, only teleport the people within a meter of its range. I honestly don't know if it's possible, but just in case, I've written safety measures into the circle itself so I can control how much mana it uses. So she's being very careful here. She's making sure that it doesn't cause a displacement incident. She seemed confident. Even if he was teleported away, he'd find his way back. If it failed and he was teleported, he wanted Nanahoshi to contact his family. He's like, yeah, this sounds good. Make sure to contact my family. A side note, yes, she also brings up the fact that, yeah, similar to your stone cannon, you're basically converting an equal amount of mana into your stone cannons before you use it, which was a shock to Rudeus. He's like, okay, so I'm not really summoning a stone cannon. I'm actually converting the mana that I'm using into this object that I then send off. But yeah, time to start the summoning process. They didn't know that the paper that she used was like really expensive. So this is a good sign that she wants this to work. She's going to use the good stuff. But yes, he starts pouring mana into it, and then one little segment of it just like snaps and it breaks and it tears. And she's not too happy, sends him off, and he's like, okay, tries to console her, but she didn't listen, so he decides to go out, and then that's the point where she breaks. And again, like I said earlier, holy crap, the seiyuu for Nanahoshi absolutely nailed it. Just that shriek, the anger, the animation showing her just throwing stuff and just trashing things. Unfortunately, they didn't include the fact that she literally takes off her mask at that point. She had it on before then. She takes her mask off, throws it at the ground, and starts clawing at her face before she goes to the wall and doesn't beat on the wall. She's literally beating her face against the wall. So it sucks that they kind of changed all that, but maybe it was a little bit too graphic to show that. But yeah, she literally just starts clawing at her face. That's when he rushes in and kind of grabs her. But yeah, the painful part here is literally her screaming over and over again, I can't go home. I can't go home. I can't go home. Again, 2 years straight of her being stuck like this, frozen in time, unable to see her family, unable to go back. And right here, she has this point where this is the next step. We're going to summon something from this other world, something specific. That's the key thing here. Something specific that she wants to summon from the other world. And it goes up in flames. So tragic. Again, her that screech in her voice, that break and everything, just, I got emotional. But yeah, Rudeus knew, just based on her face, how her lips are cracking, everything, her eyes are sunk. He knew that she was in a bad mental state. He knew that she might hurt herself. Trying to think of someone that can help the situation, he immediately thinks of Sylphie. As I always kind of joke with my Mushoku Monday coverage, what would Master Fitz do, basically? So yeah, he runs into Zanoba. They carry her to the medical office. They go there, and that's when Zanoba wants an explanation. Rudeus explains the whole situation of what she's doing, that she's trying to summon things. She's trying to get home. And this is kind of an interesting thing because, Zanoba right here is now learning that this isn't something that's... Silent 7-Star hasn't been just doing these researches because she's interested in it. No. She's doing it because it's her only means of getting home. Rudeus thought it wasn't something that she did begrudgingly, but she wasn't exactly passionate about it. She had to do it to go home. It had been 6 years, and her step forward had failed. 6 years of no progress. Oof. It kind of puts it into like concrete. This is what's going on here. And yes, Julie notes that Rudeus isn't looking too good. I like that they've noted that several times. The face that you have on right now is literally what she has. Zanoba said that when they first run into each other, your face looks just like hers. Do you guys have the same problem? Like, are you both ill? Are you both sick or something? Rudeus had to calm down. He couldn't let a young girl worry over him. And at that point, he decides to take Nanahoshi back to his place. And again, I'm so happy they had the Julie scene. I completely thought they were going to skip him carrying Julie, Because, yes, he has Zanoba. He's walking with Nanahoshi. And then right behind them, yes, at some point, he just randomly decides to just pick up Julie. And not randomly, but this is something that's kind of significant for him at that moment. He said that her body was surprisingly plump. Just years ago, she was skin and bones. She was now eating properly. Her muscles were lacking, but she didn't need to be a beefcake at the age of 7. As they were walking, Rudeus could hear Julie's heartbeat. It was strangely soothing. He really needed to buy her something the next time they went out. Again, this is something that right now he's full of anxiety. With the whole situation that's going on with Nanahoshi, that she has literally broke, and that he knows that she's going to hurt herself. He's sort of seeing a lot of himself in Nanahoshi right now. That's why he has a similar face to her. And so he's got that anxiety that's building up in him. And the moment he picks her up, she like soothes him. Having her presence with him, hearing her heartbeat, everything, it soothes him. Like, it's something that is definitely getting him over the situation. But yes, it's also cute that when he asks if Zanoba's taking care of her, she's like, yeah, Master feeds me lots. It kind of gives you an idea in the anime, but he basically is correcting the way that she's saying it because she's not using a proper sentence structure. It's super cute, though. She was super cute. And yes, makes him wonder if Nanahoshi is eating properly. Obviously, she's been locking herself up. She's hardly eating anything. She's scarcely talking to anyone. Just sitting in her room, just constantly drawing the magic circles. But yeah, they arrive home, and in the novel series, Rudeus immediately puts her into the room, and then he searches the room and pats down Nanahoshi to make sure that she doesn't have anything that can harm herself. If there's an object in the room itself that she can use to harm herself, he's taking everything out of that room. He's completely sanitizing the room so she has nothing that she can hurt herself with. And then we have the conversation with Zanoba, which this entire episode is just like, it's full on Zanoba best bro moments here. Because again, the entire time, like from the first moment that Rudeus runs into Zanoba, Zanoba's concerned for Rudeus. Yes, he's asking if Silent Seven Star is okay, but his primary concern is Rudeus. He's concerned for his friend. He's got that face that looks pale. He looks upset, distraught. But yeah, Zanoba asked him if Silent was okay, and then asked if Rudeus is okay because they have the same face. Rudeus thought that Zanoba was more worried about him than Nanahoshi. Zanoba didn't seem the type to have experienced depression, and generally was an optimist. But figures that he probably had his moments of weakness. But yeah, Rudeus realized that he probably did have a similar face as Nanahoshi. Seeing her in that state reminded him of his past. Though different triggers, they had both gone through similar mental agonies. Rudeus felt Nanahoshi's pain as if it were his own. If his circumstances were a bit different, he may have been the one lying vacantly on that floor in her place. This is a key thing here because this kind of hits on what Rudeus has experienced with Nanahoshi for so long. Is this idea that she is basically a polar opposite of him. They both came to this world. They were both in the same spot, and then they were both transported to the same world. It's just that her body is completely different than his. She came with her body, and her body's not aging. Basically his soul was brought over here. He was born into this world, and then he's growing up in it. But the main key thing here is that she doesn't want to be here. She wants to go back home. She had a family. She had a boyfriend or a guy that she was interested in. And Rudeus over here, he hated that previous world. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. Now this new world he's building up, and now he has a family. He's got Sylphie that he's married with. He's got friends. All these things that he loves. He doesn't want to go back. So he's feeling like, okay, if I was in that similar situation as her, and I didn't want to be in this world, like say for instance, if suddenly he went back to the other world, how badly would he want to return? He would be in our world trying to figure out a way of summoning him or sending himself back over here. It's tragic. So he's acknowledging at least that if it weren't for what my situation was, I could be in her situation. Now, this next part I loved. I loved it when I read it in the novel series, and I loved it when I see it in the anime again. Again, this is another one of those things that just makes me absolutely love Zanoba's character. Rudeus says, when I was little, I also had a similar experience. I became apathetic and shut myself off. Zanoba replied, I can't understand that feeling. Simple. But yes, he has abundance of strength, and Rudeus, that I'll give you that. I'm here for you if you need me. I have strength at least. Take it. What was great about this is that Rudeus acknowledges in his mind, although that sounded distancing, he didn't want Zanoba to flippantly claim to understand either. Rudeus appreciates that Zanoba's not trying to act like he understands what he's going through. That is a strong statement to make because, yes, Rudeus is used to the idea of people acting like they understand. When he was in his previous life, locked himself up, people would probably come in there and go, I don't understand what you're going through. Come on, man. Let's get over it. We can do this. You can get through this. It's fine. Walk it off. He doesn't want that. It hurts. He doesn't want to hear that. See, he doesn't like somebody lying that they understand what he's going through. Zanoba's being truthful here. He's saying, I can't understand that. but I'm going to help you. Whatever you need. I have this. I can't say that I relate and I can help you with this, but I have this. And you can have it. It's so great. I love it. But yes, following this, Rudeus tries to cheer Nanahoshi up. Not really working. Hey, I can get some potato chips. You want to go for a bath? If you need anything, just ask me. But yes, in the novel series, it says that a week had passed since Nanahoshi was under their protection, and the worst seemed to have passed. She was eating a little and taking baths. However, the ambitions that he sensed in her was gone. All that was left was resignation. Rudeus never experienced something like what she went through. Worse was when he spent several days no-lifing a game, only to find out that he was banned. He protested to the management, only to cry himself to sleep. He spent a whole month unmotivated and swore that he would never invest in another online game. Nanahoshi was different. Her objective was to return home. If she gave up on that, Rudeus was afraid that she would give up on living. He tried to encourage her, but she was just in a daze the whole time. That sucks. And again, that's that whole idea of what she's been doing this whole time was building up to figure out how to get home. And that moment, she found out that it was worthless. Every time, she explains it as this is a circuit board. The summoning circle that she's creating is basically this big circuitry. And there's all these modules and there's all these wiring that's going through each one of these points. And there's this one spot that keeps breaking. And she keeps applying things and doing loops around it and everything. And every time she would create another segment to get around it, it would just move the fault. It would just go over here. It would just break over here. And she can't figure out how to overcome that. And again, that's the point where she realized it's just impossible. I tried and tried and tried and tried. It never seems to fix. It explains that in order to fix this issue, she nearly doubled the size of the circle, trying to get around and compensate to getting around this distortion, and it just never seems to work. Patch another circuit, patch something else, get it bigger and bigger and bigger, and it never seems to work. At this point, she's realizing it's impossible. It was never possible, and what's the point? She's given up. She never wanted to be a part of this world. She's different than everybody. She can't use magic. She can't become a warrior. All these things, she's stuck here, and she wants to go home to her family, and now she's given up on life. And that's what he's realizing really quickly. But yes, Rudeus decides to enact a plan to try to figure out how to help her. And so he gets the bros together. He gets the bros together, including Elise too. But yes, brings in Cliff and Zanoba and has them look at it. And I like how they can acknowledge the idea that, look, I'm not specialist in summon circles. They don't know what this stuff is, but Rudeus doesn't mind that. He's just simply going for the idea that despite the fact that you can kind of bring people in from the outside to a project or process that they don't understand, they can still see things that people don't normally see. If you were to go into a warehouse where they're manufacturing something and you walk in there, some of the people working there might assume that this thing being over here doesn't matter, or they might overlook it because it's not a part of the process. But you might see it and go, that's kind of dangerous to be right there, right? And they'll go, yeah, you're kind of right. I never realized that. That's kind of what they're going for here. But yes, additionally, Cliff's extremely smart. Cliff is extremely smart. And yes, as we find out, Zanoba is working on something that is sort of out of the norms. So it's kind of a combination of Zanoba literally working on studying a something that has never been really heard of in a long time, seemingly, or at least not many people would probably know about it, with a doll. And then you have Cliff over here, who is a genius that knows at least how to work with a lot of circles and whatnot. He's working on magical implements and whatnot. He's deconstructing them and everything. So putting those two minds together, the out-of-the-norm knowledge and somebody that is knowledgeable in that something like that, bringing them together to essentially establish, as they find out here in a minute, essentially stacking the circles. No longer working on 2D platform, but actually going 3D, stacking it up, making it multi-layered, up to, as I mentioned in a minute, 5 total layers that this thing is kind of glued together by. But yeah, it was kind of funny, the little moment in there where Zanoba presents the doll part, and Cliff's like, holy crap, this is impossible. What the heck is this thing? How does this work? I can't understand it. He's getting frustrated because he's a genius. He got to figure it out. And Zanoba's over there like, oh yeah, that's how the arm works. And Cliff gets mad because he just explained it so he couldn't figure it out, and Zanoba has the answer for it, and it frustrates him. So Elise has to come over there and go, it's okay, you're a genius, you'd figure it out eventually. It's so great. But yes, that's when they bring Nanahoshi in. It was kind of sad because when in the light novel, when they first bring Nanahoshi in, Elise is not there. It's just Cliff and Zanoba. So when Rudeus brings Nanahoshi into this room with these two guys, she makes a comment, what, did you bring me here to ravish me? Cliff said, how dare you? I'm a devout follower of Millis. And she's like, if you say so. But yeah, it was funny. But yeah, the anime actually portrayed the scene very well. I actually like that idea of them essentially bringing up the multi-layers up on the paper that was hung up. I think that was a cool way of kind of explaining that, because it shows, without like presenting her with a stack of papers, they're literally laying it out like, think about this idea. Think of it in 3D. Think of these multiple layers that can all kind of connect with each other. You're basically layering up motherboards on top of each other, or daughter cards or whatever, in order to create multiple layers that can go around your issue. And that's what sets her off. Oh crap, this is exactly what I can do. Never thought of that before. This is great. And then she just goes crazy, starts to write on things, and have Cliff come in there and him joining in as well. It was really great. I love Cliff. He's such a good boy. Which, yes, at the point that Cliff joins in, that's when Rudeus goes to get Elise. He's like, they're getting kind of close to each other, because like he's sitting there giving her ideas, and Nanahoshi like, man, you're a genius. That's a great idea. What else? What do you think I can do here? And so Rudeus is like, I should probably go get Elise so that people don't misunderstand. But yes, all that culminates to them attempting, once again, with a layered summoning, and it works. We get not just a bottle, but a plastic PET bottle. Now, this was like a really cool thing when this first kind of popped up. Yes, it's cool because like everybody literally grabs a thing, and Cliff at some point is sitting there crumbling it, making it make noises. Everybody's fascinated by it. But I love this. I love what they have in the light novel right here. Of course, Nanahoshi's beside herself. She's super excited. She just cannot contain it. She's so happy. But in the light novel, it says, a plastic bottle, insignificant and significant at the same time. For a brief moment, this world and their last world were connected. That's the significance there. It's just a plastic bottle. But for that plastic bottle to be here, for a brief moment, their worlds were connected. And that's enough for Nanahoshi to be excited to think, and one day, I'm going to go through that path, and I'm going to get back home. It at least kind of shows that connection. It shows the possibility of it actually happening. Because everything up until now they've been summoning, it could be something from anywhere else. Now, granted, a PT bottle could be from another world. Who knows? Or not our world, at least. But everything up until now has been like summoning insect parts, like an insect leg or whatever. That could be in any world. That could be in this world, in that they're in right now. But a plastic bottle, it just doesn't exist in this world. So they have made that connection. It finally shows that possibility. So no wonder Nanahoshi is extremely excited right now. So good. But yes, she thanks Rudeus, and he says, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. You owe me something for the future. That's all that kind of stuff. Pay it forward, so to speak. And then, yes, Elise comes up and teases them for being a little bit chummy with each other before they decide to go out to have a party. Now, the party, they pretty much skip most all of it. There's some kind of commentary over for Rudeus thinking about celebrating with people, so let's get into the party itself and all the crap they skip from that one. The party was enjoyable. When good things happen, people made merry and drank. Rudeus never experienced that in his previous life, and only a couple times in this one. But after initially criticizing the loudness and drunkenness of it all, Rudeus now understood how people felt. Being in the fray himself now, sometimes, he thought, you just need to let loose and have fun. A belief justified while looking at Nanahoshi, who was stroking Linea's ears and singing anime theme songs in Japanese. If you didn't occasionally cut loose and forget your troubles, you wouldn't be able to go on. Life was full of pain after all. Without finding good, you would crumble. Bodigatti and Elise probably knew that more than anyone else here, given their long life. It's such good words. And again, it kind of goes in that idea of Rudeus acknowledging, I used to hate people like this, people that were partying and stuff like that. There's like a little bit of a sense of jealousy there. But it really does seem like he's literally saying, I didn't understand it. And now I'm there. And now I'm realizing we just accomplished something and we want to celebrate. This makes you feel good. With so much troubles in your life and so many struggles, it's good to get together and just be merry. But yeah, then Rudeus goes into explaining how Sylphie is sort of that type of drinker. Sylphie and Rudeus was going to drink to their heart's content, despite not drinking much at home. They weren't used to it. But then Rudeus finally understood how bad a drunk Sylphie was. No, it wasn't that she was bad, just the clingy type. She became an adorable creature, asking him to pat her on the head and eat her ears. But it made him want to tell her not to drink outside, for his sake. She also got really jealous, but not for women, but Ruijerd. Sylphie is jealous of Ruijerd. The way that he talked about Ruijerd made Sylphie not like it. She wanted him to only pay attention to her. She's the yandere type. This is where I came up with my big yandere type for, my hidden yandere type for Sylphie. The silent fits, the one that doesn't express her own emotions. Here it's showing signs that she literally was jealous of Rudeus talking about how much he respects and loves Ruijerd. She doesn't like that. She seemed fine when he talked about Ruijerd, but this must be how she really felt. He always thought that it seemed scary that she accepted everything, but maybe she worked hard to make it seem that way. As he pulled Sylphie to his lap, Nanahoshi came over and protested his public display, noting how long she had been without her boyfriend. He was honestly ready to sing a duet with her of a popular Japanese song. She said, at least go somewhere where people didn't have to look at you if you're gonna make out. He said, come on, don't be like that. They've got alcohol here. Let's have some fun together. She replied, besides, I've been wanting to say this for a while now. Even from inside my room, smooch, smooch, creak, creak. What the hell is marriage anyways? Huh? What is it? I mean, it's fine, whatever. But what the hell? There I was, totally down the dumps. And you two were having sex. I could even hear your voices echo at night. Gah, eek. Bodyguardy then suddenly lifted Nanahoshi into his arms. Bwahaha. Come along. Today, you will sing with me your bizarre songs. They're not bizarre. They're popular in my world. How very interesting. I know not what world you come from, but sing them for me. Go on. Sing as much as you can. Hold on. I have something to say to Rudeus first. Bwahaha. You are better off singing if you have nothing nice to say to the man that helped you. Now, sing. I was just leading into what I wanted to say. She barked in protest. It's so dorky. Bodyguardy coming in there and realizing that she's souring the mood. Come over here. Let's sing. Be merry. It's good stuff. Good stuff. But again, it kind of gets in that whole idea of her struggling with the fact that Rudeus is moving on in this world and she's never accepted it. But yes, additionally, that Rudeus is rude enough to be doing that kind of stuff when somebody is in her... It does make you wonder, like, Rudeus, what the hell, dude? You have somebody in your house that's depressed because she can't go back home because she doesn't want to be in this world, and you're doing this in there? It's like him getting her potato chips. It just makes it hurt more. It's dorky. Rudeus thought that she probably wanted to thank him, but she didn't need to. He did what a friend would do when they were in trouble. As Nanahoshi sang and Bodyguardy played an instrument at her side, she was bad. No, horrible. Still, they were enjoying themselves, and Nanahoshi was the star of the group today. Still, did she really want to go home that badly? It was something Rudeus couldn't understand. The country he loved was right here. The party ended and Nanahoshi was completely tanked. As Rudeus returned home with Sylphie, he noticed a banging at the door and arguing. That's when Sylphie casted Detoxification on them, and Rudeus activated his demon eye. And yes, that's when we have the appearance of Norn and Aisha and Ruijerd. Best Papa Ruijerd. I was like so freaking happy when this happened in the novel series. But yeah, it was such a good thing to see them. Immediately, Aisha rushes out there, hugs Rudeus. At the same time over there, you have Norn not looking happy. That little Norn pout face on. I'm super excited about the next episode. I will say this is probably a good sign that we will not get the perspective of what happened at the port. Essentially, the meeting of Ruijerd. There is a chapter in the novel series showing Ruijerd meeting Paul and Aisha and Norn. So I might wait maybe until after the next episode to make sure that they don't go, well, this is all what happened. This is how we met Ruijerd or whatever. They might get into it. I doubt it. I kind of assume that we're going to skip that entire chapter. So if they do end up not having it in the next episode, I'll make a separate video covering that whole chapter because it is a very good chapter. And it's definitely significant to establishing a relationship between two characters. So we'll see though. But yeah, that's the episode proper. Some side notes for all the people that like to get all the nitty gritty that was skipped. At some point, Rudeus mentioned the fact that Linnea and Priscilla introduced him to a first year delinquent that defeated all the other first year punks. Zanoba had annihilated him, and he became part of Rudeus's group for some reason. According to rumors, the university had a 4 heavenly kings-like rule, called the demonic Circle of 6. The circle answered to Rudeus. If someone could beat Rudeus' circle of 6, they can challenge Rudeus. The 6 was Zanoba, Cliff, Linnea, Priscilla, Fitz, and Bodyguardy. The first challenger fought Zanoba for a while, keeping range with magic. But Zanoba withstood all of it until he was drained of mana. With range not being Zanoba's specialty, Rudeus really wanted to teach him something. But that all meant that Rudeus had become the boss of the school without his knowledge. The good side is, delinquents listened to him. He seen a pack bullying someone, and their faces went pale when he intervened. As long as he lived, he wouldn't let the weak be harassed. out of nowhere, literally, they just create this whole, like, system and everything. And he just comes in there and goes, well, at least people can listen to me. I can stop bullying in the school now. Other than that, we also had some updates regarding magic and where everybody's at currently. He noted a lot of Sylphie's current standings with certain magic fields: fire magic, intermediate; water magic, advanced; earth magic, advanced; wind magic, advanced; healing, advanced; and detoxification, advanced. Rudeus recently learned that the 6 types of magic were called the fundamental 6, the 6 most frequently used types. The university sought to have students achieve beginner in all 6 during their 2 to 3 years, then move on to pick a major and spend the remaining years elevating their mastery to the advanced. There was almost no students that could reach advanced in multiple fields, let alone saint level. Exceptional students like Sylphie and Cliff came once every 10 years or so. However, in recent years, there had been one exceptional student every year. They seemed like geniuses, but Rudeus felt that it was ordinary compared to monsters, referred to as gods, like Ors did. Rudeus then went over his stats. According to Badigadi and Kishirika, his mana capacity was god level, but he never got the feeling he'd ever be god level himself. He was your average car with a fuel tank of a passenger plane. Run forever, but never fast. Adding a jet engine would cause the car to fall apart. In a design concept, he was junk. But it was nice to never run out of fuel. And that's it. That's all I have for skip content for this episode 15 question mark of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation second season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video rundown, impressions / skip content. I feel like this video ended up being mostly just me running through skip content. I didn't realize how much we skipped in this episode. But again, I still feel like despite the skip content, this was an incredible episode. Again, going up there as one of my favorite of the series so far in anime adaptations in a long time. So it was really great stuff. Again, Nanahoshi's breakdown, little cute little Julie scene, seeing Roxy finally, Ruijerd, Aisha, and Norn are there. Super excited. But anyhow, until next Mushoku Sunday, hope you guys enjoyed this skip content impressions video. If you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know what's the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to get my content. I'd need you to use first impressions top list if it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips, links, so thanks for membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does, and y'all take care.